You are joining us from the UK, from Oxford, as a former vice president of the World Bank. You've seen quite a bit of slumps and recessions during your lifetime. How bad is this one? Have you seen anything like this throughout your tenure at the World Bank?
No, this is the worst economic crisis in my lifetime. I think it is, in many countries, the worst on record. In the UK, we're saying it's the worst in 300 years. So this is dramatic. What's been extremely unusual, of course, is it's very uneven. You know, we've seen stock markets booming. The technology firms have been doing extremely well. So some parts of the economy are doing okay. Governments are preventing bankruptcy. So it's very unusual in terms of crises, because mostly in crises you expect firms to go bankrupt. But in the rich countries, which have found $15 trillion to support their firms and to support workers to some extent, the government actions have stopped the worst impact. Globally, though, it's disastrous. And for Africa, I think for India, South Asia, and for Latin America, we're seeing a massive economic hit. And of course, the World Bank estimates that 125 million more people have been pushed into extreme poverty as a result of this pandemic. So many more people will die of starvation than will die of the economic of COVID-19 around the world. And that is something which we require much more solidarity for. While the rich countries have found $15 trillion for themselves, less than 0.5% has gone, 0.5% has gone to developing countries, well under $100 billion. So this inequality between what the rich countries are finding for themselves and the rest of the world is one of the very different things to previous recessions, where we've seen a more even global impact.
The coronavirus originated from, yet China is the only major economy to actually grow in 2020. Mildly, perhaps 2.3%, but a growth nonetheless. How do you explain that? How do you explain this phenomenon of China, a country that has battling this crisis very badly and was hit by this crisis at the beginning of 2020 and seems to be blossoming at this particular point, economically anyway?
Yes, I think the Chinese leadership have done a remarkable job in containing the virus and ensuring that the economy remains robust. And so it has been and is the engine, as it was incidentally after the 2008-9 financial crisis, the engine of economic growth, really pulling the rest of the world along with it. Of course, it's also increased its exports, not least of medical equipment and computers, as people are working more and more remotely. So you see the export stats being quite robust, and its market share has increased during the pandemic as other producers have closed down. So far from deglobalization, we're actually seeing an acceleration of globalization in many facets, including, of course, this session. And that is very good for China, which is riding the globalization wave. Investments increased, not least from the US. During the Trump years, we saw a very rapid increase in the final last years, 2019, 2020, record investment from the US and from many other places in China to take advantage of this to diversify assets around the world. So on trade, it's done well. In investment, it's done well. And of course, the population has been very effective at managing this, wearing masks, following the rules, and that has helped contain it. And East Asia generally has done well. So China's integration with the region has also been a part of this great success. So yes, the economic center of global gravity is moving more rapidly than it would have towards over East Asia as a result of this.
And Ian, if I may follow up, because you are an international observer of economic systems out there even long before this pandemic, is there any one particular economic system that has done better, that has fared better throughout this pandemic than others?
Well, people are trying to compare many things. Do democracies do better than autocracies, different countries? And there's no simple answer to your question. The people that have done best are the people that follow the World Health Organization's advice the quickest, who've got the capacity domestically because they weren't in debt previously or high levels of debt to turn on the taps of quantitative easing, of fiscal stimulus to support their companies. So countries that are able, that have the fiscal space and the monetary space, and who follow the guidelines quickly of the WHO have been the most effective. Many of them have been led by women, and there seems to be some correlation between female leadership and success, but there are also many other countries, and it's not rich or poor. Countries like Vietnam, for example, Mongolia, have done astoundingly well. In Europe, Greece is one of the best performers, although it's one of the worst countries in terms of economic capacity and capacity in some other areas. So there's no simple rule. Some of the richest countries, the UK, obviously, US, have done terribly in many respects. And indeed, those with some of the greatest scientific capacity. The US has the best scientific capacity in the world. UK is very good, have not done very well. And it might be that the more powerful you are, the more arrogant you are, you think you can do it your own way, and then you have big problems. So there's no simple answer as to which countries have done well, other than having fiscal space really matters. And there's a lesson for the future in that we need to ensure that we have that resilience that comes from governments being able to be effective. Cutting back governments, having a weak national health service undermines one's ability to cope with crises like this. And that's a lesson, I think, of the years of austerity, which have been accelerated since the financial crisis. And of course, following the rules, not least global rules, really does make a big difference in this respect.
Is that also your assessment? Has multilateralism prevailed? Has cooperation improved throughout this pandemic? Or has it been more like everyone out for themselves?
I think the pandemic has demonstrated we need much more multilateralism. We need to reinforce the World Health Organization, and we need to also have international organizations on other crises. In the international financial organizations, the development agencies will become increasingly important. I think the jury is out. My hope is that we're going to reinforce it. Of course, we saw President Trump withdraw during the pandemic from both the climate and the World Health Organization agreements. President Biden coming back has been absolutely right. But now we need to make a commitment and reinforce it. And I totally agree with the previous speakers. We've learned a lot. And one of the things we've learned is about the importance of national solidarity within our countries and between countries to stop future pandemics and other major crises.
Are you hopeful? Just quick answer. Are you hopeful, Ian Goldin, that things will be okay?
Yes, I think this could be a crisis that is the big wake-up call, in the same way that the Second World War gave way to an international new order, to the United Nations system, to global solidarity, Marshall Plan, Bretton Woods institutions. This could be the moment that really teaches us that if we carry on as business as normal, we're heading over a cliff. But of course, what the First World War teaches us is that unless we really do wake up, we can be in a cycle which goes downwards that led to the Great Depression and an even worse war. So we really need to hope that we're in that Second World War sort of moment and that we do change our ways. If we don't, then we're going to have a series of escalating crises. I'm hopeful that it's a wake-up call that we'll hear.